Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to carry on with the Marseille theme, which is part of my 2024. And over the next many weeks, I'm going to explore individual decks, and I'm hoping that I can do more than one broadcast on some Saturdays, and I may as well do a broadcast midweek sharing all of my Tarot de Marseille collection, all of the decks that are presently in my library. And as I go through and share all of these decks, I would also like to do many side by sides as well. So I will compare like decks. And I was also contemplating comparing every single one of my decks to the Conver deck, likely to the Jodorowsky Camon deck, but we'll have to see. But today I decided to go back, and to start with this amazing reproduction from the museum, the Tarot Museum in Bologna. And this deck is the newest, I believe, the latest deck that I have in my tarot library. And it is called the Tarocchi Fine Dalla Torre. And this reproduction of the tarot has quite a history. And I will do my best to mention some of these interesting facts and part of the story of this deck as I go through the cards today. There are two links down below. One is for the article that Tarot Heritage did, tarot-heritage.com. And within their article, there is also an excellent another article that is through tarotwheel.net, and I would suggest, if you're interested in this deck, reading both of those. And if you have any other decks from Bologna, please, I look forward to your comments as well too. Welcome, Dee. So this is there's a really interesting expression. I should have highlighted it. This is not a Tarot de Marseille, in that this deck is originally a 52 card deck. And this is of particular interest to me in that I have studied Lenormand for quite a few years, and Lenormand is also a deck that did not include the lower cards of the minor arcana. And traditionally, these decks from Bologna did not include these cards as well. And so if those of you that are interested in Lenormand might also, and are interested in the history of cartomancy, might also find this a rabbit hole that you might want to research. So just sharing that with you. But I thought today I would start with the backs of these cards, the story, the mythology that goes with the backs of these cards. And I'm going to read from the insert that came with the deck. There are two winged angels. One is the classic Cupid with a bow and arrow, while the other points to a large tree with a heart hanging like a fruit. This is probably a reference to the myth of Apollo and Daphne, both struck by arrows of Eros, but with opposite results. Sorry, I'm just processing that. Even though I've read this a few times, I just think a penny finally dropped. Apollo fell in love with Daphne while she flatly refused his advances after a long chase through the woods, so as not to give in to the passions of the god of oracles. This nymph prayed for an escape and was thus transformed into the sweetly scented laurel plant known as Daphne in Greek, and which consequently became the symbolic tribute of the great poets of ancient Greece. I am absolutely in love with the artwork in this deck. And there is something entrancing, and I don't know if that is the right word. I did a video some time back about why I like working with these older decks. I will zoom out so you can see the whole card. Um, this is the Magician. I am going to start with the Major Arcana. And that has to do with it's almost like, that's funny, Dee. It's almost like you get transported. You get transported to another time, another place. Um, Let me just fiddle with the camera for a little bit. I feel like these cards are a gift from another time. Maybe I'll come over here and then I'll flip them the other way so you can see the whole card. There's a magic to them that is so very different from doing readings, just holding them in your hand and playing with them and shuffling, and then contemporary cards. It's hard to explain unless you've actually experienced these cards in your hand. I think this is a compelling enough reason to begin a journey with these older cards. And of course, they're reproductions, and so they're not authentically older cards, but yet they still have this flavor of, oh, it's hard to capture in language. They really do feel like you're tapping into something and you're touching something that likely is not available picking up an Anatolian deck, for example. All right, so this is, and these cards are not titled, and originally they were not numbered either because the Bolognese decks had a completely different numbering system. And if you're interested in that, that is detailed in the tarot wheel oracle. But I have placed these in the traditional order from 1 to 21, or 1 to 22. So if you look at the Magician, we have a familiar Magician card with various items on the table, and yet in this deck we also have spectators on both sides of the table. Very interesting perspective of the spectators, but spectators nonetheless. I wonder about that, Dee. I think when we look into some of these old myths, I get a bad taste in my mouth, and I try to look at the mythology archetypally and connect it to lessons and things that feel relevant. But most certainly, I think a lot of it's like the old, I don't know, like the Grimm fairy tales, even something more contemporary. There's often something that's very dark. Yeah. All right, so one of the really interesting things in this deck is the switch of the priestess and the priest, and we'll get to that in a moment. So this is the high priestess, and look, isn't this interesting how I'm seeing the sun and the moon depicted overhead, which would be left, right, black and white pillar. And one of the things I'm noticing here is that left is indeed the left hand of the priestess. So we see the darkness on the right side of the card. And that's one of the things that really bothers me in contemporary tarot, is that we see the black pillar as we look at the card on the left rather than from the left hand of the high priestess. And I know there's reasons to see it that way, but I think this is really cool that the sun is on the left side of the card. And notice that she has the gesture that we see in the contemporary Hierophant. So we'll look at these two cards side by side. Yeah. So that is the high priestess, if you want to give her that name. And then here is the Empress. And you can see a hint of a rounded belly there. And I don't know what you may attribute to the perhaps sun or planet or moon that we see here. And there you can see the Emperor and the Empress side by side, and she is leaning into him, he's leaning into her. They look like they belong together, and that's something I really do appreciate in any tarot deck. I'm just observing the ground that is underneath them. I was just looking for the Empress, and besides the hint of a round belly, the greenery in the background. But these cards tend to have a fairly plain background, a neutral background. The paper texture, it's one of those yes, the Magician is very much out of perspective. What was I going to say? It'll come back. All right, so here again, here's the High Priestess. And then, uh-oh, where did the priest go? Just a second. Here it is. Okay. So I'm going to put it over here. And these cards were also not numbered. Like I said, that they were not numbered, but there you can see that they have been numbered in Arabic numerals. And then look at the hands of the priest. Right? He's got the stigmata on his hands. And there is a pairing. Look at this. This is another thing that is so cool with these older decks, is that the relationship, there is a relationship between the high priest and the high priestess. And I'm almost seeing, well, I wonder if this is a union of the sun and the moon in this artwork here, or if I'm reading too much into that. Anyway, nonetheless, that is your high priest and your high priestess. And then here again is your Empress and Emperor. Another important pairing. Now, this is not and never was. What has she got on her hands? The high priest has a stigmata on his hands. Sorry, the chat is a little bit out of sync. Yeah. Okay. This is the Lover's card. And what makes this so different from a Tarot de Marseille is that we have Cupid and two figures, not three. And this quite ornate fountain between the two of them. And Cupid is shooting the arrow. I believe that is right. Cupid shoots the arrow at the young girl in the Tarot de Marseille. But there's something between them. And that feels almost as if they aren't quite yet allowed to be together. And one of the major differences in the Lover's card in the Tarot de Marseille and the Lover's card in more contemporary tarot, it feels that it really is a conversation about engaging in relationship, about choosing love, and all that might change in our lives. And there's, I mean, I suppose I could write something about this, and I've spoken about it and thought about it. We'll come to it. I am going to do a sort of chapter by chapter through the major arcana, and I may do some comparing of Tarot de Marseille with more contemporary decks. And I find that this is one of the most misunderstood, and it is an enigmatic sort of energy. And I think the way that the Golden Dawn approached it, the way Aleister Crowley introduced the energy of Lilith, the way that Classical Marseille portrays it with the choice of son choosing love and leaving mother and all that comes with that. I mean, it's so interesting. This is a really good question, Dee, and I wonder if these were secret decks, if these were very private. Because they were commissioned for the rich, were they not? These were not public cards. We're talking about this particular deck is inspired from the deck from the 17th century. So these would have not been in public circulation. Okay. Chariot. And notice he has the same kind of orb that the Empress held. And the depiction of the horses is really interesting as well, too. One body, two heads. This feels very Marie White kind of conversation. And if you've been following me for some time, you'll know that I love what Marie White did with the sevens in that deck and the dialogue about the chariot. Okay, so we do need to look at strength and justice together. Oh, no, it's not that one. Okay, so here is 8. Just a moment here. So this is Justice 8, which looks familiar. And then here's the Hermit. Oh, this is the one. Okay, this is very interesting. So notice how the Hermit, I wonder if the Hermit is leaving the temple. Ooh, okay, let's go back to Dee's comment here. Band of Wonders is very topic. The later TDM kept the female pope and they were available for the general public. So, yeah, he's an angel. I don't know if who would have had their hands on these cards at this time. So Yes, he's an angel, and but he's leaving the temple. The pillar is behind him. A single pillar is behind him. I'm going to skip the wheel just for a second because I want to show you the strength card. Notice how strength, I think it's a pillar. Strength has their arm around a pillar, but the emperor is not the emperor, the hermit is leaving the pillar. I don't know. Something going on with these two cards here. He's an angel, and yet he has two walking sticks. Isn't that interesting? Okay, here's the wheel. And then we have that same orb. So we saw that orb. This is the third card. We've seen that orb being held. And does that figure look like... I wonder if these are figures that we have seen in the major arcana. Let's get the Empress card. No, the Empress doesn't have a crown. Let's get the Emperor. Okay, so there's the Empress. Sorry, the Empress does have a crown. That was Justice I was looking at. This is so interesting. Okay. There's the Charioteer. And there's the Emperor. It looks, I don't know who that is. Hi, Clevis, welcome. Okay. So interesting. Okay, let's go on. This is the Hanged One. And I'm not particularly... hi, Arya. There's not really a halo. I see the messiness in the hair. There is a bit of a glow around the head. And this person is really statically drawn. If I'm looking at this card right way up, there is no evidence of hanging hair. It's a pretty chilled hanged man. Death and Temperance. And notice the direction Death is riding. And I think, oh no, we haven't talked about majors. We haven't got there yet. But I know in Tarot de Marseille, Death rides. Death is in a couple of different directions. And Death here is riding, like in the Waite Smith. Right? Because in a Tarot de Marseille, Death often more looks like this. So the Hermit is an angel, but Temperance is not. And the two containers, do we see? They're more like More like jugs. And death is definitely going to the left. What are the pink halo things on the Hanged Man and death? Those pink things. I don't know. Are they? What do you think? Here around the horse's head, and then here around, it's almost as if, I have no idea. And sometimes I wonder in these cards, you're going to see it again in the devil as well too. So here's the devil. The devil has these swirly things as well. And the devil's marching in the same direction as death. I think we're looking at the front. But then the face is looking to the right and there's a tongue hanging out. Sorry, jiggling the table. Get excited and start moving things around. Death has ribbons in no hair. That's funny. It's almost like the an unnatural turning of the head in the devil. It's almost, I feel like I'm looking at the back. Death is walking forward, but we're looking at the back of the body. I feel like the body has been reversed. It's like it's going in the wrong direction. Arya says, looks almost like a rosary, that thing on the hanged man's knee and Death's horse. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, 16. I want to put 18 and 19. I'll move the star over. Just have a good look at the tower. It's quite a large structure. It almost looks like a corner piece of a castle. And not particularly high either. And you can see instead of having the figures in midair, they're down, quite down on the ground. They've already landed. Okay, and in the star card, these are the three magi. That is so funny, Dee. Yes. So in the star card, this is the star of Bethlehem and the three magi. Oh, stop shaking. Okay, and then let's do sun. Look at sun and moon beside each other. I'll move the star over. This paper is just lovely. It's that oh, that's 19. And look at 19 is feminine, and moon has two people. So how about if I get out the lover's card and we can look at, because there's something going on with lovers and the moon. And that is very interesting. So in the lovers card, sorry, in the moon card, the figure on the right has a, I don't know what you call them, like a right angle, like a measuring thing. But look at this. Does it look to you like there's a relationship between the lovers card and the moon? Yes. Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. In the moon, they look like astronomers. Ah, okay. Okay. I was just wondering. Yes, you're probably right. I was just wondering with lovers, love, and moon, and the potential of water element, if there was a connection. And the figure in the sun appears to be on a throne. Okay, now I need to find the last three cards. Okay, so here is Judgment, World, and Fool. 20, 21, 22. Judgment, World, and Fool. And I find the World card really interesting. So we have Hermes atop the symbol for the four element symbol or the world symbol, and perhaps a setting sun behind and through that. Okay, so my question here are there any tarot decks that you would like to see these majors side by side? When was this deck made? Well, the reproduction is recent, but this deck is 17th century, and there's no exact date. Yeah, 17th century Italy. So it predates the Tarot de Marseille. Here's something really interesting about this deck as well, too. In this early tarot deck, there are still traditional depictions of the High Priestess, Empress, Emperor, Pope that were viewed unfavorably by the authorities of the Papal States, and which were subsequently replaced in Tarocchi Bolognese by the first by two popes and two emperors by at least 1669, and eventually by images of the four Moors during the late 17th century. From the perspective of symbolism, this deck shows extremely interesting details, particularly when compared to the traditional portrayal of the cards. Let's go to Aria's comment here. Spinning thread. It was generally done at home, literally a cottage industry when the woman was not otherwise busy with cooking, washing, etc. Quite old, so one can see how the images appeared and some continued into the TDM. Yeah. Yeah, so quite old. So let's look at the aces, and then I will show you what they've done with the minors, because of course not all of these cards existed because there was no 2, 3, 4, and 5 in these decks. They had to be recreated to look like the decks. Yeah. Okay, so here's the Ace of Cups. Perhaps two birds on either side. In the Ace of Pentacles, it is a dog and a hare, according to the one of the articles. A dog and a hare. Hare overhead, dog below. And here's your Ace of Wands. And one, so this looks more like an Ace of Swords, yet the crown is significantly lower. And the Ace of Swords is really interesting. Scooch this over just a little bit. So the Ace of Swords is bent and ends in a dragon. So apparently that's supposed to be a dragon, or that would be like an Ouroboros sort of symbol. And I wonder why this one is so faded. And these are, and I tell you another thing that's really interesting is the reproduction process. So in 2014, this reproduction began. They originally had 56 cards that are engraved on wood with a colorful facade. They did not perform an actual restorative process directly on these cards, but rather worked on the images digitally through various color definition phases, both with pastels and by utilizing computer graphics. The first step was to print the image in A4 format and then define the contours and colors by using professional pastels. The refined images were then scanned and set in Photoshop to clean up smudges caused by time and wear. One of the goals was to not interfere creatively with the look of these cards, but to preserve the original freshness, which is characteristic of the era, and a valuable and distinctive artwork. The Queen of Cups and the Queen of Coins were missing and have been redesigned and processed through Photoshop from some other decks from Bologna. Okay, so besides one JJ Swiss. Okay, good to know. I will make a note of that. One JJ Swiss and Fine della Torre. Okay. All right, so let's look at what this deck has done with the minors. Here are the cups, and it's very, very simple. There are no numbers. And you'll see the configuration with 5 is different, as is the configuration with 3. So I think, yeah, the Ace of Swords looks faded. You're right. And in my journey with learning to read playing cards, this is becoming really interesting in looking at the configuration of the cards and the fact that these are so plain and simple. Now, remember that the 2, 3, 4, and 5 did not exist. So these have been, what did I just say? They have been modeled after some other decks of the era. So here is the 6, which is the same on a deck of contemporary playing cards, 2 straight paths. And then here is 7, which is still moving ahead and not showing a block, right? So that 7th one isn't in the middle. And here is 8 and 9, right? So really plain. And there's a little bit of embellishment on the 10. And so we do see a 5 plus 5. I think I'm going to show you the minors, and then we'll look at the court cards, the honors. Okay. So 2. Sorry, I want to do it this way just for my own study. 3, 4, 4, 'So this particular shape of 5 changes everything with the 5 and the 7. It's almost, they have a more positive energy of going forth. That single one that's different, going ahead. So this is the same, 2 parallel lines, and then again, 1 overhead, same as in the cups. We saw that. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. Sorry, I've messed this up. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 7, 9. 2. Oh, this one is different. I wonder why. I wonder why the pattern has changed. Okay. There's the 9. 9. 8, 9, and 10. There's the 2 10s. Okay, so they have different patterns. Okay. Let's go to the batons. Two. I can do it this way. Now let's see which way this goes. Okay, so this is the way it goes. 2, 3, 4, and these are quite faded. Yeah, the card maker's on the 10, not the 2. So notice something in this deck, notice the direction. So the central sword is going down and the central baton is going down. 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, no, wrong one, 9, 9, and 10, 10. So 10 is crossing. Ooh, this is different. That is different with the 10 having a cross in the center. Maybe the cups are too tall to stack in 5 pairs like the coins. Maybe. Yeah. Are these the cards they didn't have because they seem rather strange? No, these are not the cards. They had, I can read to you the missing ones, just a second. There were a few cards that were missing. 2 of the queens were missing. But they also had, and if you look at one of the articles below, they were using other decks from Bologna to model these decks. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the swords. And I can put these in a different order if you like. So here is the Fonti, the page, the valet, the cavalier. And notice the cavalier, that's not the right word of an Italian anyway. He has a different sword, like a scimitar. Ooh, look how young the king looks. And honestly, that looks like a chess piece down there on the left. I'm seeing a chess piece, but could be something else. Could be a kingdom through a window. I don't know. So those are your sword cards. And the Queen of Swords, I wonder how she compares to Justice. I don't know how quickly I can find it. Here she is. There's Justice. Okay, then let's look at the wands, the batons. Okay, so notice how the valet has a shield in all of these. There's the queen. The kings look really young. And there's your knight. And there's something very odd. So there's your batons. The 2 queens that were absent, what did I say? The Queen of Cups and the Queen of Coins were absent. So this one was there. And they look really, really young. Okay, So then we go to this rather androgynous looking Valet of Cups. And the really old King of Cups. So this one is recreated because it was missing. Looks like they did a pretty good job. And then the final 4 cards. I commented on that Queen of Pentacles when we were doing the other part of the series. It's the drink that makes him old. This is interesting. So we have two rather, so in the uh, feminine suits, we have feminine or androgynous looking valet. And then we have in the masculine suits with shields, masculine valet. And the knights all have these odd striped horses. I wonder if there's a particular breed that's meant to emulate. There's the 4 queens. Do we have forward-facing queens of swords? Yes, we do. So it's only, oh gosh, when did that change? You know how in the Waite-Smith we have side-facing Queen of Swords? We only see half of their face. So I'm wondering historically when the Queen of Swords changed from forward-facing, or if this varies from deck to deck. That's something I'm going to have to pay attention to. And then here's all the kings again. Coins, cups, wands, and swords. So quite obviously two young ones and 2 older ones. And look how different their robes are and what they wear. The blue top knot on the Knight of Coins is so funny. Okay, let me look at that again. I'll just let you look at the kings for a second. Which pile was it, Indy? Not that one. First pile. I'll have to look later. I can't I can't see what you're pointing to. Yeah. So this is this is the second edition. There was another edition of this reproduction that came in a wood box, and you can still get this reproduction and directly from the museum, and you can get it from Our Nails Art as well too, I believe. Really interesting. These are these are interesting size cards. Many of you have the La Corte de Tarocchi, and I'll display one of those cards on here. So these are significantly larger than La Corte de Tarocchi, wider and taller, but similar cardstock, very similar cardstock. These ones are a little bit thinner, but that same sort of watercolor paper. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for joining me for this walkthrough, and I'm going to carry on, kind of going from oldest to newest, and then pausing throughout to do some side-by-side comparisons. I want to wish you a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all very soon. Take good care. Namaste.